Hey, Sam, welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I'm excited to be speaking with you today.
You as well, Andrew. Happy to be here.
And I think you mentioned this was your first podcast interview.
It's my first podcast interview, especially in larger marketing. Um, I'm excited for it to be a little bit of a opportunity to speak about some interesting concepts.
Well, before we get into some nitty-gritty marketing that I really want to hear your thoughts on, I want to take a step back and hear why did you get into marketing in the first place?
Oh, it was a complete accident. Finished college around 2010 and was looking for an opportunity, and I guess the best ones come from referrals. So my sister actually opened the door for me to go into Group M, and I kicked my career off there, and I was there for 12 years. Recently left to Omnicom, so definitely was a nice ride. And after 12 years, I almost felt like graduating from school. So um, it was an accident that I fell into it, but it very much fit like my personality. Having gone to college for business, uh, theater, and minors in psychology and philosophy, I feel like all of those kind of fit into marketing. You need
Mhm.
that business mindset. You also need that creativity and ability to work with people and collaborate, but then also to understand the consumers and think outside the box. So all of those things kind of played a role, and it's odd that I didn't know I wanted to be in it, but it's been definitely a successful place for me in my career.
So over the course of your career, when you are deploying or brainstorming on marketing strategy, what are some of the core principles that guide you in that thought process?
Uh, the first and most important piece is always trying to understand the consumer and align with them. Um, the second is being able to adapt, and that's kind of a trend that I see throughout many aspects of the things we'll be talking about today, because the ability to adapt, whether it's to the consumer or to the data that you see or to the trends you see in the larger landscape in terms of like channels, um, really allows you to grow and take advantage of the opportunities in front of you. So being able to adapt, act on data, and then automate and simplify things as much as
Mhm.
possible. Because there's so much volume to what we do. There's so much available data. There's so many partners you can work with. There's so many different angles and ways that you can work through them. So being able to simplify kind of your approach and your way of doing things to have something that you can tap into as
Mhm.
like a memory structure definitely helps.
Can you share some examples of how you needed to adapt in marketing, and especially in the last couple of years? Top of mind for me would be it was COVID, then it was iOS 14 the next year.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd love to hear some ways you've been adapting.
Yeah, so I actually started my career in traditional search, and for me, I wanted to learn more. And
Mhm.
so traditional search at the time was somewhat established, but still relatively new, especially in the larger scheme of marketing. Everyone was still kind of with the old school traditional channels, and search was definitely changing how people thought about media. And then quickly after, social became the big thing. And so I moved from search into social, started moving into programmatic, which wasn't necessarily new, but definitely had some big evolutions. Um, and then about 2019, 2020, which is when COVID happened, I actually moved into retail. And the
Mhm.
timing was like perfect to your point, because that consumer shift where, yes, online shopping was a behavior that was growing, but it wasn't growing as fast as, let's say, in a country like China. But that COVID piece really uh, put us on a different trajectory, and shifted a lot of money towards retail marketing. And that's where my career has been for the past couple of years. And most recently in my new role at Omnicom, working with L'Oreal on retail media. So um, for me, and back to what I was saying before, all about being able to adapt to what you're seeing in the market, what you're seeing in the data, what you're seeing in consumer behavior. That's kind of led my career to where it is today, and I would have never thought. um, retail marketing was going to be where I ended up. But here we are, and it's been great. And I love the balance of trying to look at the brand side, the retail side, bringing them together, and making sure that you're speaking to the consumer in a streamlined fashion and targeting the right people.
What are some challenges you've experienced in retail marketing to be an effective marketer?
Yeah, I think it's difficult that a lot of the retailers kind of have these walled gardens. There's only so much data that they're willing to share, and it's been
Mhm,
difficult to also um, make sure that the audiences you're targeting are kind of like those same people.
mhm,
And that's been kind of changing and evolving with more clean rooms and the ability to bring in like first party data into the retailers and target. So that shift of consumers to retailers led to shifts in budgets. And then those retailers have been really adapting and changing to scale the available inventory and available opportunities for marketers. And so that's included, especially over the past year or so, offsite social,
mhm.
offsite display. So the ability to tap into your audiences across the web through, let's say, a trade desk or a Pinterest, Facebook, but still drive them back to that retailer and starting to connect those two pieces of brand and retail together.
I want to go back to your first path into marketing, which was search.
Sure.
How do you feel AI is going to disrupt search?
It's interesting because the search core functionalities have always been people typing
Mhm,
into, let's say, Google. And that's starting to change with people talking more into their devices. Um, But I think the most important things will continue to be what a lot of people ignore, which is, let's say, SEO and
mhm,
making sure that your website, your content, everything is optimized. Because when you go to like even a Google today and you search for something, they have, Google generated answers. And a lot of times they're looking at the top organic reviews and kind of summarizing and rewording what's being said. So if you start looking at the audio landscape, if you're on Amazon Echo or whatever the device
mhm,
is, and you're talking to it, that AI is probably going to spit out what it sees as like top relevant results. And it's going to define that by some sort of algorithm that needs to be quantified. SEO and the content that you put on it is definitely going to feed into that. From a paid perspective, I'm sure more and more opportunities will allow you to tap into it. In terms of advertising search using AI, it's interesting because that technology has been there for a while. All these
mhm,
algorithms and all these bid management tools um, have led the space in the search landscape in terms of tech, and it's been available to tap into, and we've kind of been using it. A lot of people are scared that AI is going to take away jobs,
mhm,
and I think marketing, we've seen that you use AI and it advances what you're able to do and makes it more efficient. So instead of spending time hands on keyboard optimizing, you're able to think about more strategic things because it is still a people based and strategy based world, and AI is not going to replace that. So
mhm.
I think AI plays different roles in different places, whether it's consumer facing or the back end, and we need to make sure that we like speak to each one differently.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Has this time last year, I remember there was widespread panic in the marketing space of the fear of AI potentially just wiping out all these white collar jobs. So if there's someone who is listening who might have had some fear of their job was going to be in jeopardy because of AI, what advice would you give to that person to make sure that their skill set is not going to be replaced by AI? Like, what are skills,
Sure.
what are, mindsets that you would recommend?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is working on your soft skills and working
Mhm,
on being more strategic, understanding the concept of cross channel and omni channel.
mhm,
Because by doing that, you allow your so what I always say is instead of focusing on the role, focus on the skill sets. So if you focus on those skill sets, the ability to talk to people, the ability to think through difficult concepts, you're going to be the person that they go to when they have an issue, as
mhm,
opposed to if you're just trying to be the technical executor of the media, more and more those technical skills are going to be replaced.
Mhm.
And so focusing on the soft skills, focusing on the skills that allow you to be more omni-channel, allow you to be more of a value to whoever your customer is, whether it's a brand or it is an agency, being able to work with them, it's still all people based. So um, I wouldn't be scared of it necessarily. I would look forward to using it, but I would definitely think of it as an opportunity to take a step back and consider, where's my career going? What do I want to do with my career, and how can I improve those skill sets to make sure, I'm not left behind, if you will.
Awesome. How do you measure success in your marketing campaigns?
Um, for us, especially in retail, it's a lot of sales, revenue, return on ad spend, ROI. Um, Most of that we get from the retailers, and that's been interesting because they all kind of define it a little bit differently. Even within a retailer, they'll define it differently between, let's say, search and display. So the streamlining of all those definitions has been something that like IAB has been working on and just put out, I think like 6 months ago, a document that's like, here's how we should think about measurement standardization across the retailer space. But before the retail space, I did a lot of D2C. And from that perspective, it was, on-site conversions, whether it was subscriptions or purchases, because I worked with like IKEA, for example, and so it was buying things from their store, but also driving people to their locations. And so definitely it can vary based on what you're trying to accomplish for your business, and sometimes it's a couple of different things. What I always try to say is start from the top down, which is identify what is the business goal, and then identify what is the media goal that feeds into it. Because a lot of times marketers will jump into the media goal and get stuck with that and forget that there's like a bigger picture. And going back to the business goal and understanding questions and concerns that come down to you, if you're an agency, for example, or if you're a brand marketer, when they come down to you from, let's say, a CMO or a CEO, if you can understand where it comes from a business perspective, and then can translate that to, well, here's what it means to media, you'll be able to speak to a little bit more clearly and confidently.
Uh, what advice would you give to this marketing? I mean, you'd say marketing manager just as a very broad term. I was having
Yeah.
a conversation with her, and her outsource Facebook ad vendor was saying, "Oh, our cost per click is great," and they were using that as the king metric instead of presenting to her, return on ad spend. What advice would you give to someone to really make sure that they're setting, their employees, their contractors, their vendors up for success and really measuring the right thing?
Yeah. So we look at it in three parts. First is front end, second is back end, and the third is like lagging. So
Mhm.
front end is going to be your impressions, your clicks, your click through rate, your CPC. That's important to know because in the day to day, it's a lot of what you have to optimize off of. The second is going to be your lagging. And conversions a lot of times happen, the majority happen either that day or within the next couple of days. But, depending on what the purchase cycle is of your product or service, it can take, 2 weeks, it can take a month. If you're B2B, it can take longer. So just thinking about the ones that are like 2 weeks to, a month, you need time for that data and that attribution to come through to be able to
Mhm.
optimize off of. So you have the front end, you have the back end that you need to leave time for and consider, and that's a little bit more valuable. But then you have like the lagging, such as like an MMM, media mix modeling, and that's when you start to get into modeling that showcases what is the return for that channel, for that tactic. And it's difficult to plan accordingly because sometimes you run into a situation where you're planning for the next year and MMM doesn't come out for another 4 months. And so you need to try to find a balance of, well, what do I know about this based on the MMM that I had before? What do I have in terms of the lagging and the leading indicators, and how can I use that? But always try to identify what's the key thing, the key goal, and the metric that you're working towards. And so if that is, and back to the concept of business to media goals, if your goal is I worked on a telco, for example. If your goal is to get more subscribers, then the media goal is really to get those subscribers. And so you need to be looking at a regular basis on how many subscriptions did you get. And it's going
Mhm.
to be, let's say, 50% came from online and 50% came from phone calls. So you got to wait for those phone calls to come through and you have that data, but you need to be able to have something to optimize to, and that's the online piece. So I think it's important to understand the business goal, the media goal. Where do those come from? Where does that data come from? And what do you have to optimize today and kind of a longer term and then like big picture, if you will?
So my last question today is taking in all the lessons you had in 2023, what advice would you give to marketing leaders as we're thinking towards the future?
Oh, interesting. So, um, for marketing leaders, I would say my approach this year is going to be trying to um, lead the team to kind of reboot
Mhm.
because I feel like, and I don't know if it was just me, but I hear it from other people that, from COVID, especially with more junior people, um, there seems to be like a disconnect from a culture perspective
Mhm.
and an interest in coming into the office or growing careers, or maybe a lack of knowledge as to how that happens. And the concept seems to be, hey, I do my work, like I should get promoted. But I think there's so much behind how you move up in a company, how you grow your network, how you learn. Like I used to just sit there, let's say late at work, and then when I finish, my first question to my boss is like, "Do you need anything?"
Mhm.
And you don't really see that anymore. So I think part of that is also the people who are more senior, um, middle managers and slightly above, maybe not necessarily CMO, but potentially as well, they're not seen in the office as much either because those jobs are kind of easier to do from home and you can be successful with that. So my recommendation is spend this year getting back into the office, being the example of the culture that you want to see, working with those junior people and kind of getting in the weeds with them. And
Mhm.
for like CMO, it might be just the level under, but for those middle managers, it'll be, senior associates managers, and bring them into that same vibe. We want to be here together. We want to get work done together. We want an open forum of collaboration.
Mhm.
And a lot of that has kind of fallen off, and it's led to people just focusing on the basics. And while
Mhm.
it's basics are important, that doesn't allow you to like thrive as a company or thrive as a team. And so for me, it's about getting back into the office, rebuilding connections, and making sure that the culture is like a positive one within the teams that I work. So I don't know. Depends on
Perfect.
the challenge of of like the business leader, but that's what I see in front of me the past couple years and what I'm trying to challenge, the challenge I'm trying to take on this year and resolve.
Perfect, Sam. Lastly, if there's any way someone can follow up with you, can you share any, links, social media channels? What's the best way to stay in touch?
Yeah, very active on LinkedIn. Always trying to post, or if I have opportunities that I can help people either find roles or just answer questions, I'm available. So um,
Do you want to spell out your last name as
yeah, so
well?
it's Sam Nehme, so SAM, and then Nehme is NEHME. So I will be I'm always checking my messages. I always have people reaching out to me either for new roles or opportunities. And I also have a group that smokes cigars and drinks whiskey and we talk media. And it's just
Nice.
like agency vendor brands, and that's a nice forum as well. So if that interests anybody, it's a good opportunity to network, and I'm open to new people joining as well.
Can you share more info on that? If you're in the New York City area or New Jersey?
Yeah, we're in like New York City, greater region. I live in Jersey, but for us, it's just a small group that for the past 8 years, on a monthly basis, we get together and talk about media. So it's been a great way for like myself, agency side, learning directly from vendors, what are they doing, and then
Mhm.
vice versa, what challenges are we seeing that they can help resolve. And so it's allowed me an opportunity to stay ahead of what technology, what partners, what media is out there in a friendly,
Mhm.
non-salesy environment.
Mhm.
And that's been something we've done for years, and we've had uh, I would say about 20 or 30 different people rotate in over the course of the years, and we're always open to having people join and just you know talk and learn from each other. People have found job opportunities through there just by meeting vendors and agencies and speaking to their skills, and it's been a good networking opportunity. And if mine happens to be cigars and whiskey, but for other people it may be walks in the park, it may be bowling, it may be a different event or activity that allows you to do something but with people in the network,
Mhm.
and allows you to grow that knowledge base of yours through people. And so I would say find that for yourself. I have mine, and other people can definitely build their own, and sometimes you got to be the one to lead it, and that's perfectly fine.
Perfect, Sam. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely, Andrew. It was great talking to you, and I hope to talk to you again.